A bird still has its limits. An 8-year-old child cannot cross a crowded street. And yet humans keep dreaming of absolute freedom. True freedom is not the ability to fly without limits, but knowing where you want to go and having the strength to carry what you choose. People often believe that what humans desire most is freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to define themselves, the freedom to love whom they wish, the freedom to live the way they want. But if you look more deeply, you'll see a paradox. What humans fear the most is freedom itself. It is no coincidence that Sartre, the existential philosopher, said the famous line, "Man is condemned to be free." Freedom is the doorway to happiness. But in reality, it is where the deepest anxiety of human existence resides, because freedom not only gives us the ability to choose, it forces us to take responsibility for everything we choose. And that is where fear begins. Freedom means absolute responsibility. What frightens people is not the choice itself, but the consequences of that choice. When we are truly free, there is no one left to blame, no one left to carry the weight for us, no one left to lead the way. If life goes in the wrong direction, we are the only ones responsible. If you choose the wrong career, that's on you. If you love the wrong person, that's you too. If your life derails, no one can take responsibility for you. Freedom, therefore, is not a reward. Freedom is a burden. And it is precisely this burden that makes humans afraid of being free. The truth of fear. Humans are afraid of themselves. Buddhism teaches, no one binds you except your own mind. And Jung said, wisdom comes when we dare to look into our own darkness. What makes humans fear freedom is not the outside world. The real fear lives within. Freedom means having nowhere left to hide, no more roles to play, no one left to blame. Freedom forces you to face the fears you avoid, the shadows you bury, the desires you're afraid to admit, and the wounds you've never confronted. Freedom is a mirror exposing our true nature. And not everyone dares to look into that mirror, the great escape humans fear. Freedom, so they choose dependence. Because they fear facing themselves, humans unconsciously build comfortable prisons. Dependence on parents, dependence on relationships, dependence on work, dependence on approval, dependence on social expectations, dependence on the roles the ego creates. We call it stability, but in truth, it is simply a way of running from freedom. You say you don't want to live by your parents' rules, so you go do the opposite. You think that is freedom. But you are still controlled by your parents. You merely switched from obeying to rebelling. Neither is freedom, because your actions still revolve around them. You say you don't want a job that confines you, so you quit in search of freedom. But then you discover you are not free. You are just running from responsibility, running from pressure. You replace the prison of stability with the prison of uncertainty. Neither is freedom, because you still don't know what you truly want. You only know what you don't want. What is true? Freedom. True freedom is not doing whatever you want. True freedom is not being driven by fear, not being controlled by past wounds, not being manipulated by the ego, not living according to templates, knowing what you truly want, and taking responsibility for it. Freedom becomes real only when you are strong enough to bear responsibility. An 8-year-old child cannot ride a bike across a busy street, not because society steals their freedom, but they are not yet capable of handling the consequences if something happens. Adults are the same. You are free only to the extent that you have the capacity to carry the outcomes of your choices. True freedom is living consciously, not living like a programmed machine. True freedom is daring to walk your own path, even when that path is filled with risks, shadows, and challenges. There is no such thing as limitless freedom. And many of the constraints in life, when understood correctly, are not chains, but companions of freedom. You want to fly like a bird, but you do not have wings. That is a biological limit. Even a bird, the symbol of freedom, still has limits. Yet it knows exactly where it wants to go. You want to travel far, but must stop at a red light. That limit does not take away your freedom. It protects your life and the freedom of others. Freedom is not the absence of boundaries. Freedom is understanding those boundaries and still choosing your own direction within them. And freedom does not come from the outside. It begins within. You may live in a modern society with 1,000 choices, careers, lifestyles, courses, technologies. But if you don't know who you are, don't know what you truly want, don't have a solid inner value system, then you will drown in false freedom and become what society calls a beta consommateur, a consuming animal. True freedom does not lie in having many options, but in the ability to choose the right one for yourself. Humans are not afraid of chains. Humans are afraid of removing them, because when there are no more barriers, no one left to blame, no one left to lean on, we are forced to stand on our own feet. Freedom is therefore both the greatest gift and the deepest challenge. Only when we dare to face the fear of freedom do we truly mature. And only when we take responsibility for the entirety of our lives do we know what it means to live fully. Freedom is not for those who seek safety. Freedom is for those who dare to become themselves. When you're ready to look deep within, I'll be here. Hit subscribe, and together we'll step into the stillness of consciousness.